All right. How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may be that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood on there Christmas Eve hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour Grinch frown at the warm lights windows below in the town. For every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girl and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing the Grinch hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's young and old would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast and they'd feast and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and Who rare roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least.
That rhymes.
Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got an awful, wonderful idea.
What? Alana. Whoa.
I know just what I'll do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply says, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and he took some old thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on the ramshackle sleigh and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who lay a snooze in their towns. And their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air, and the Who's were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he first came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the Grinch hissed, and he climbed on the roof, emptied bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck out his head from the fireplace flue. Where the little Who stockings were hung in a row, these stockings, he grinned, are the first thing to go. And he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags, and then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox where he took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding and the roast beef. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash, while the Grinch even took the last can of Who hash.
Oh, no.
Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, said the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree.
Oh,
Oh, no. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard the small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around so fast and he saw a small Who. It was Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd gotten out of her bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
It's not Santa Claus. It's the Grinch.
But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet tot, The fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and I'll bring it back here. And his fit fooled the child, and he patted her head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went up the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Oh, man. Then the last little thing he took was a log for the fire. He went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. He packed up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsels, the trimmings and trappings.
That's a lot of stuff he needs.
So much in that sled.
Yeah,
3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he drove with his load to the tip-tops to dump it. Pooh-hoo to the Who's, he was grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that Christmas isn't coming. They're just waking up, I know what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will cry, boo-hoo-hoo. That's a noise, the Grinch said, I must simply hear. So he paused and put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started out low, then it started to grow. But this sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, and he shook when he saw in a shocking surprise.
What is it?
Sing.
Sing.
Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing with no presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could this be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. The end.